very quiet subdued in 2020.
Morning, councillors, CEO, directors, staff, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. The traditional custodians of the land on which we're privileged to meet, and the land that occupies our Mackay Regional Council footprint, the Iwi people, represent a human link dating back over 2,000 generations as part of one of the oldest living cultures on the planet. So we pay our respects to the Indigenous elders, past and present, and recognise their continuing connection to our land and our community. So to the members in the public gallery, this council meeting is being streamed live, as you see in the top right-hand corner there, recorded and published in accordance with the council's approved standing orders. And by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image and voice being recorded and published. And we're required to tell you that you may be subject to legal action if your actions and comments are deemed inappropriate or unacceptable. And welcome to our online members as well. Right, thank you very much. I declare this meeting of the Mackay Regional Council open, and welcome Father Stephen Hanley to lead us today in prayer.
Mayor and councillors and everybody, it's a privilege to be with you. Loving and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts. Our Mackay Regional Council come together at the beginning of this new year and on this day to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage and strength. Be with them in their deliberations and help them to be wise in the decisions they make for the good of all, those who have placed their trust in them and confidence in their leadership. Give them insight to continue to lead with integrity, that their decisions may reflect what is right and what is good. Help them to make decisions that continue to be for the good of all people. Finally, dear God, grant them the wisdom to always seek your will in all that they do and say. All glory be to you, loving God, now and forevermore. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Father Stephen. Thanks for being here. So, councillors, we don't have anybody absent on council business. We've got a leave for Councillor Kevin Casey. Somebody move, Councillor Cam moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Oh, apologies. Then, are there any condolences? Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just to acknowledge and to send our condolences to the last mayor of Moranishire, Dave Price. His wife passed away in December, and a memorial service was held for her. They had since moved to Cairns, and a memorial service was held last week to recognise Brenda's life and her contribution to our community, and in particular to the arts community and the theatre community. She was an avid supporter and member of the QCOM Theatre as well as the Pinnacle Players, and Brenda did an awful lot in encouraging people to participate in the arts, encouraging young people to participate in the arts. So if we could just send our condolences, that would be great.
Thanks, Councillor May. Further condolences? No further condolences? Let's move on. Are there any conflicts of interest? And note that Councillor May and Councillor Mann have registered a conflict of interest in the RADF discussion at 10.3. Are there any further conflicts of interest to be declared? Let's move on. The confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the 11th of December meeting have been circulated. And would somebody like to move that they be adopted? Councillor Clayton moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Business arising out of the minutes as we've been notified of. There's no mayoral minutes, so let's move into the committee reports and recommendations. 10.1 is the Character and Heritage Advisory Committee of the 29th of November, the draft minutes. Are there any questions on that? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor May. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. Because it was our last meeting for 2019, we took the opportunity to combine the combined museums as well as the Character and Heritage Committee meetings, given that the membership is roughly the same of both committees anyway. We discussed the upcoming Character and Heritage Awards, and normally they're held in conjunction with Greenmount Heritage Fair, but because of the slightly different format last year, it was decided to make them a standalone event, and the nominations close at the end of this month, and we're doing the presentations early in February. We discussed next Heritage Trail workshop, and the actions from those discussions were invitations to a workshop to progress investigations will be forwarded early 2020, and council to consider further funding opportunities, including capital budget or co-funding, and officers will progress those actions. The Serena Air Raid Shelter has been heritage listed, as we all know, and a conservation management plan has been established. It was decided by SLPT that would sit with property services, and officers are going to seek funding to carry out the actions in that conservation management plan as and when funding is available. And I know the Serena locals certainly want to see it preserved, the integrity of it preserved as it was intended to be, and as a tourist attraction as well. So they'll very much have their input into, I believe, what happens there anyway. They'll certainly be asking to have their input. The museums gave updates on all their activities, and Museums Coordinator Alicia Stevenson thanked everybody for their input and for the assistance they've given her since she started in the role, so that was really good. And then Councillor May, Inglet and I took the opportunity to enjoy morning tea hosted by council staff, and to thank the committee for their valuable service throughout the year.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Worship. I just really wanted to acknowledge publicly all of the work that the Character Heritage and the Combined Museums committee members have done. We rely upon volunteers to be part of that committee. And I think as this council term draws to a close, we can rest assured that we have, through our members and through our commitment from our staff, raised the bar, I think, as far as character and heritage and the value of museums in our community. So it really is just a shout out to say thank you to everybody that's been involved, staff included. We are just so blessed to have fantastic, passionate staff that really care about our history, our heritage, and where we've come from and where we're going to. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor May. Any other speakers? No other speakers? The motion for adoption of the minutes, I'll put that now. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Let's move on. 10.2 is the Local Disaster Management Group minutes of the 9th of December. Any questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Cam moves. Councillor England moves. Councillor Cam seconds. Councillor England.
I defer to Councillor Cam if she'd like to.
Councillor Cam.
Thank you, Your Worship. He beat me. It was a pretty straightforward meeting with all of the agencies contributing to status updates and preparation, and touching wood. Right now, we've had no reason to put anyone on alert or change our position. But obviously, the emergency disaster season goes until at least April. We know that from Cyclone Debbie, and I believe there's a meeting, I think, next week.
Thanks very much, Councillor Cam. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. 10.3 is the Regional Arts Development Fund Round 2. And we've got a couple of conflicts here.
Yeah, we did the first one.
Oh, we're going to do this. We split it up. Okay, right, very good. Any questions over all of this? No questions? So we've split it up then. So would somebody like to?
This is the conflicted one, mate.
Yeah.
So the first one is the two councils conflicted.
All right. I have trouble reading this.
Yeah.
Eh? What?
So this is the first one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So is this
that
the
the councillors
conflicted?
can vote on. No, and then the second one is the.
That's right.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So are there any questions on this one? Would somebody like to move this adoption?
Yes.
Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. There's no questions. Those in favour? Any against? It's carried. Now, now we can move out.
Yep, right.
All the council voted on that one.
Yeah, sorry.
And so the second part of this program, which allocated about $66,150 in funding, which was a tremendous program. So the second part of this program includes the areas of conflict. Are there any questions at all? No questions? All right. Would somebody like to move then? Councillor Cam moves. We've got a new system, as you can see, and Councillor Payton seconds. So, Councillor Cam.
Thank you, Worship. I'll speak more on behalf of Councillor Mann and Councillor May, who I believe obviously are a part of this RADF committee, along with other councillors, Councillor G as well. But it was just a fantastic application process, as we can see. There's some great projects that will come out of this funding that's been approved, and we look forward to seeing the delivery of those this coming year.
Very good. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thanks very much, XO. How are we going with that, Pam? We up
That's
to that?
exactly the same.
All right, let's move on. 11 point, agenda item 11 is the correspondence and officers' reports. So let's move on to the Office of the Mayor and CEO. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. Good morning, everybody. I'll just be quick. We're halfway through our financial year and generally all our key performance measures and projects are on track. And as planned, the next meeting we have our quarterly operational report update. Our safety performance year to date has seen some minor incidents, and we've had 2 LTIs that are in this report. Since then, there's been one that happened in December that has resulted in an LTI that we'll report on next month. And then we've had another one this month too in Parks with someone stepping out of a vehicle and unfortunately snapping at the back of their ankle, so we'll report on that. And a number of councillors have already spoken to me. I'll speak, and I'm sure you'll ask me some questions as well. Our corrective action performance. So I did make a comment in there. It's very low performance. It's something we've been tracking, as you know. Almost all the ones that are overdue at the end of December relate to the August services and relate to audits that we did around our aquatic facilities last year. And a lot of those actions are with the operators of those facilities, not just Belgravia, but Morani, Serena and everything else. And the date that we put in when we set those audits was the 31st of December. All the key ones have been done. Some of the other ones that are still going, they're in play, but they weren't finished by the 31st of December, but we didn't change the date in the system. So as soon as the system says it wasn't done by that time, it's overdue, which is how it's supposed to work. So I can assure you that the ones that haven't been done will be done in the next month. And the dates probably should have been changed just to reflect when they would have been done, but this doesn't reflect no action at all, but the data the way it's shown, and that's what almost all of them are. The 2021 budget, we've had our first meetings to start working on that as staff, as which we always do. So we've set some basics around that. We'll see how that plays out. You'll see, and we'll talk about in our capital delivery report, all our major projects are tracking well. We've had favourable weather up till recently, so they're all going pretty well. If anyone's driven past the Resource Centre of Excellence lately, the roof's now on and it's coming up very, very quickly, so it's all on track for May finish. You'll see that our staff turnover has stabilised, albeit at historically higher levels than normal, and while it's placing some pressures on parts of our business, we're comfortable with our service levels are being held at this moment. The 2020 Enterprise Agreement negotiations have commenced. We've exchanged log of claims and there's another meeting in late February on that, so that's another process that's started. And as a focus of officers, as we approach the March local government elections, we're ensuring that all key activities and strategies and projects are all in play and all the key decisions have been made so we can keep the business moving while that process is running.
Thanks, CEO. Questions for the CEO? Councillor Mann.
So I've got 3. First one is around the corrective actions. So I realise what the CEO's just said, but in the category 60 to 360 days, there's a high percentage in there. That's what I'm concerned with, and concerned that they will be closed out this month as well.
CEO.
Yeah, the 60 days, obviously 2 months, as you know. So yeah, some of those ones were some of the minor ones that just haven't been done. So we've got to chase those operators to make sure they're done. And it's a real lesson about our accountability inside our business to make sure even if it's not under our control, we're following it up. So they will be sorted. Yeah.
Number 2 is incident summary shows a large proportion of non-staff member incidents, and while I know they need to be reported, I wonder if they can be reported in a separate table, given we don't have control over what non-staff members necessarily do at our facilities.
CEO.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Mann. You know there's been a heavy focus in this council on making sure we report everything. So the data that comes up to you is us sending a message to the organisations, regardless of the incident, if it happens in our premises, whether it's a contractor or a member of the public or anyone else, we want to report it. Yep. And I can assure you that underneath the layer you see is we separate all that out. So we are very clear on what numbers are public that we may not have any control over. So we've set at the moment a mechanism that we capture it all so we don't in any way lose any information. We're more than happy to talk, whether it's this council or the next, about giving you a second set of numbers. Without those, it's fine. We've got all that data, we've actually recorded that data. We're very clear on which ones we're working on, but at the moment we've been recording all incidents. I am very, very comfortable that we are now reporting almost everything we see. You'll see our reporting now, which is great, so we start to feel where the key areas are.
And the third one is around St Helens Beach groin and the completion of that work, and just whether the comments have been favourable or unfavourable, or how the public has responded. Yeah.
I haven't heard, but anyway, CEO.
Yeah, I have. No, so originally when the work was done by the contractor in November, December, I had a number of calls from the residents of the community through the Progress Association president. So there's no issues with the groins, they're very complimentary. What had happened when the contractor had finished, a lot of the public walked beside those groins, and the sand and how the rock had been formed, the sand had filtered through into the rock, the larger rock, and there were some sharp edges and things that we went back and corrected, and we then fenced off some area to make that safe. So since that's been done and we acted on that very quickly, I have not heard anything for the last 4 to 5 weeks.
Good. Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Ballard.
Having heard some of the circumstances with regard to the tendon injury suffered by a staff member, I am concerned, or would like to know whether we take into account. We had a briefing last year with regard to a fatality out at one of the mines that may have to do with medications and that sort of thing. There are a number of medications for comorbidities that can influence the performance of a person's structural integrity at work. And I'm wondering whether we've actually addressed that, in that the threshold for an incident is significantly lowered when that sort of thing's going on. I'm just wondering where we are with that sort of thing.
CEO.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bell. So obviously, an individual's medications is their business, and we've got Privacy Act issues we have to hold. However, we also do ask through our processes and through the EA that people notify us of any medication they're on, so then we can assess with their work duties whether there's any risk associated with that. On the particular issue you mentioned, we haven't worked through that. We're still working on that investigation. It only happened a week ago. But it's up to the employee to let us know if they're on any medication that they think could impair their ability to do their duties, and then we'll work with them, modify duties or whatever based on that. Obviously, if someone's hurt, they go and see their own medical practitioner, then work cover and so on is involved, but depending on what the circumstance is. We don't necessarily, as an organisation, get to see their private file, which again is Privacy Act. But yeah, look, we've got a very good relationship with our employees who tell us when they're on medication and so on, and we work with them on whether that medication in any way can impact their ability to do their job and they're suitable for duties. So I think we've got a reasonable process from my history here. In terms of this particular one, I haven't seen the detailed process around that and whether this particular employee was on or wasn't on, and whether it was declared or not, if he was on something that would have possibly impacted his ability to do his job.
I'm just interested that in a lot of cases with some of these medications, it's not something that's made obvious by the doctors to them. I'm wondering whether we shouldn't have just every so often a bit of an instruction and education thing. You know, if you are on these class medications, you may that sort of thing. Things such as statins can lead to a significant increase in tendon injuries. With the comorbidity of hyperlipidemia and age, that sort of thing. As I said, the injury threshold comes down considerably. That is of concern.
Yeah, we can have a look again, say the individual's advice they get from their own medical practitioner about what they're on is obviously none of our business, other than whether there's any chance it can impact their ability to do their job. So we can have a look and make sure through our safety department that anybody who is on something and they declare that the information provided by the medical practitioner, make sure there's a good link to whether there is any risk around that. We can have a look at that.
Councillor Bonachero.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Just following on from Councillor Mann in relation to those corrective actions, I was just wondering if the CEO could give us some example of what one of those corrective actions were, or what they are that have seemed to be, you know, so far behind. What sort of things are we talking about?
Sure, CEO.
Small signage around a chemical pump in a closed room that the public can't get to. Physical painting of a slipway in a chemical room that the public's not involved in. So all the ones that were high, what we considered high or medium risk that impacted the public, were done straight away. It's those ones there where we've said to the operator, we'd like you to put a sign in, please. And it's in a low risk area. Could you please go put the sign in? Because that's what the audit said that we should do. We've got an external audit. That was on the back of the incidents that occurred, you'll probably remember up at with Sunday and so on. We wanted to do a crop check. We did a full external check of our facilities, including Blue Water Lagoon. So it was all around those minor ones that we've asked them to do on our behalf, or there's some that we're working with them on. That's an example of what they are.
Okay.
So 2 months is a long time to have to do those. So it's more, we didn't put a tough enough date on that for it to be sort of in excess of 60 days.
If you knew the number of actions that we had in this business that were risk rated, they'd be in the thousands. So we can't do everything. What we do is based on our risk profile. So low risk go last. So in that meantime, we could have had high risk come from somewhere, or medium risk that we deem as higher priority than the lower risk. That's the process we use. It's a never-ending journey that you never get to the end of. So the disappointing thing here, and trust me, the director and the manager know, was that we should have recognised that we weren't going to quite make it. We don't change the date to make it look good. We change the date based on what is the information in front of us telling us. And that message has been clearly sent through about the discipline around that, regardless whether it's Christmas or not. Okay, so we're happy to send you that full list of correct, no, all complete transparency. There is thousands of items on our lists. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Rashid. Just got a question around the resource centre. Excellent. It's great to see it progressing very well, the building, everything happening. But I was just wondering around the actual operating model and the discussions that we're having there and how that's progressing.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Payton. So the operating lease has been signed, and Council signed off on that a couple of months ago, and we signed that, so that's the operating lease. I can tell you that Resource Industry Network set up a separate entity to run the Resource Centre of Excellence with its own governance, audit and risk committee. I gave some assistance in that, and I was the CEO, just they asked me to give it on the governance side. That's all set up, and they're currently out advertising for a senior manager to run that facility. They've got procedures in place, working through. We've given them a hand with some of those, even though we don't have to, it's just out of assistance. So they're all ready to go. You know, we're on track for a end of April, May completion of the project. The area in the project that we've been struggling with isn't the physical constructions, making sure we get the scope of the internal simulator and that from RIM. We've made good progress on that now in the last month or two through good work from our staff. So look, I think they're in probably as good a shape as they can be to be ready to go from where they are. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Cam.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two questions. One's in relation to the works and tender for Dalrymple Road. Note that the tenders were closing mid-January. When, if all going well and that you need specialist contractors, when do you anticipate those works to be finalised?
How much is us to
Director.
because he saw the tenders? I haven't seen it yet. Sorry.
Dalrymple Road's restoration works, where the tenders closed and have come in. Has there been any issue in the specialist contractors required for the nature of that work, and then roughly just what's the time frame of that project to complete?
Yeah, through your worship, there's two tenders. So the tender for the road repair is actually closed. The second tender, which is the micro piling, which is fixing the embankment, which is more specialised, is still out of the market. So the completion of the roadworks, I think, is scheduled for a couple of months, but that's obviously weather dependent where we are. We have been monitoring the slip since it first emerged 12 months ago, over 12 months ago, and there hasn't been any further slippage. So we don't think there's any risk by going into a wet season again that we're going to get major slippage and cause an issue. But we should be able to obviously repair the roadworks when that's awarded. So we'll do that in the delegation through the CEO. The micro piling is going to be, a little bit longer.
Okay, thanks. And my second question is around the GWCOM regional deal, Mayor, and just note there that the CEO's group was going to progress the development of a detailed project plan. Will we see, and noting individual councils need to be engaged on that first, will we see that before you go to the next meeting in February?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had a briefing in December, and the CEO's group's tomorrow. We'll come tomorrow. So, and the consultant's given us a plan cost estimate that needs to go back to the next GWCOM meeting in February. It's always got to come back to the individual councils to agree about how much money's got to go in and whether we agree with the plan. So that is exactly the plan.
Thank you.
So probably another month we'll have more information, Councillor Cam.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Walker.
Thank you. The Northern Australia Alliance was promoted as offering a lot of benefits to our region. Has it actually kicked any goals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The Northern Australia Alliance seemed to fall apart a couple of years ago. It has now got some legs again. We have a seat at the table, just like all of the other northern regional councils, which is the important part of it. Their focus was on the $6 billion fund. Have they kicked any goals? Not yet. But all councils are now contributing to the Northern Australia Alliance, which is pretty good. And it has been taken up by Senator Canavan, so he's driving it now.
So we're living in hope?
We are living in hope, yes. And it's, once again, it's one of those things where we've got a seat at the table now with GW3 and they're driving our interaction on the Northern Australia Alliance, where we didn't have an interaction before. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just in relation to the corrective actions, and I'm just wondering, do we capture, not so much specifically around each particular action, but when we go to tender again for these facilities, and all of the, the experience that we've had with the corrective action, maybe the slowness to respond to some of them. So do we make sure that we capture that in our forward tendering process, or if we're renewing a tender or extending a tender, is that become part of the information that's, used in that negotiation?
Sure, CEO.
I think the current contracts cover it adequately now, Councillor May. I think it's about our management of those contracts.
Okay.
So, safety, our highest priority. So there's always risks in every asset, as you know, and some are new and some are a bit older. So I think it's up to us and our staff to make sure that if we've agreed that an action's going to get done and it's prioritised appropriately, that we tell the operators what we expect from them, and no one's refusing to do it. So there's no one refusing, saying the contract doesn't allow us. It's more about what they put as priority versus what we see as a priority. So that's our job and our staff's job to manage that. And this one has shown that there's been a couple that we should have pushed a bit harder, and if there was not getting done in the time frame, we need to make sure that's clear that we want it done.
Yeah. Your Worship. So I suppose, when those contracts become due for renewal, so whether our staff, they're doing their job and trying to drive that through the contractor, but if the contractor's not responding, that's what I'm saying needs to be taken into account when those contracts come up for renewal, or as we know, a lot of the contracts are written that you get a 12-month extension.
Yeah.
Those things need to be, reflected in that negotiation. Yeah.
CEO.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So in terms of the history of how they've performed, sorry, I was talking about the process. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely, we'll capture that and make sure that we understand all that. Yeah.
Particularly if it's happening on a regular basis.
Further questions? No further questions for the CEO. Thanks very much. Would somebody like to move the adoption of the report, please? Councillor Mann moves. Councillor Payton seconds. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Your Worship. So workplace health and safety results again show the focus on safety, and while there has been some LTIs, our thoughts certainly are with those employees, and hopefully their recovery is going well and they can return to work shortly. Still on safety, in December, 100% completion of safety inspections, which is really, really good result, and it just shows that people are certainly, that is at the forefront of their mind. And also, I'm particularly impressed with the manager safety interactions as well, that they're being completed on time and I guess more than what they need to complete as well, which is really good. Most key initiatives seem to be on track, and scheduled completion date of all of them is June 20, so hopefully that isn't overloading people too much. I was really interested to read actually the GWCOM meeting minutes, and in particular the way we're collaborating with the other councils in terms of waste management, because that's really, really important coming into more and more pressure being put onto councils for waste to landfill and reduction of all of that. So some really good initiatives happening there, and I'm happy to move the report.
Councillor Mann, speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking forward.
Yes, Your Worship. Just in relation, I'd like to raise one point and congratulate staff actually on 2.1 in our Cyclone Debbie update. There's a small note down there that says of the Cyclone Debbie submissions to QRA that of the 14 submissions for acquittal approved to QRA totalling $8.5 million, only $3,000 was denied as ineligible. So I think that's an excellent result, and I think congratulate staff on their prudence in putting in what is eligible and not trying to bend the rules. And I think it's a feather in the council's cap to be so accurate in $8.5 million worth of work. So congratulations to staff involved.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion in. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. 11.1.22 is the attendance of a councillor at the 2019 Australian Tourism Awards. This was laid down at the last meeting, pending some legal clarifications. I think it's a pretty straightforward report. Are there any questions? Somebody like to move the adoption? Councillor Cam moves, Councillor Englert seconds, Councillor Cam.
Thank you, Mayor. Given that the Sugar Shed and our region has contested the Australian Tourism Awards every year for the past several years, I think it's great that we do have a councillor attend on behalf of the region, and Councillor May, who is not just a passionate advocate but also a Serena local to represent the community's interests there as well. So we look forward to hopefully coming back with some good news.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? There's 2 recorded against. The motion is carried. 11.1.3 is the Memorial Swim Centre Community Reference Group Terms of Reference. Once again, this is a pretty good report. CEO, do you want to speak to this?
Just from our September council meeting, there was a resolution of council to commence a community reference group. This is terms of reference to do that. As council would know, we're also at the moment out with an EOI for potential people interested in that reference group. We just wanted to get going. My personal view is if this gets approved today is that we'd have at least 1 meeting before caretaker mode, probably more just to set the scene and so on, and then obviously there'd be nothing happening until after the election, and then we can in earnest start working through that group as per the terms of reference.
So this is just a straight reaction to a motion of council, an action of council. Are there questions? Councillor Payne.
I did have one question around that. I was saying that we're going to have a meeting before caretaker mode, because if we're announcing who the community members are at the 12th and we're in caretaker by the 22nd, do you think that we'll have time?
We should have time, and if we're ready to go, we should have time. CEO.
I think the terms of reference, the actual delegation to select the group is with a councillor and myself and director. So it actually isn't necessarily endorsed. That's what the terms of reference says. It doesn't actually come to council to be endorsed. What I said is I think we'd send a report around saying this is what the group's suggested who gets, but it's actually the terms of reference doesn't say that the council sign off on that. It says, I'm pretty sure it says a councillor, CEO,
we would certainly adopt
the director of all services choose. And then if that can be done reasonably quickly, then you could have a meeting sort of towards that later week before caretaker mode. So I would say it'd be more administratively, but again, that's not necessarily my view to what it is. We have got a terms of reference and endorsed first.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If we will have time, I possibly misread how it was written there around bringing to the 12th of February meeting.
Okay, Councillor Bonmature.
Just following on from Councillor Payton, why appoint councillors 10 days out from caretaker mode? To me seems a little bit odd. Surely I don't see the relevance in doing that so close to caretaker mode. There could be different councillors come the new election.
Well, this is a community reference group. Council has a couple of spots on the community reference group. I think from the motion of council that we're reacting to form this one, I think we've got to get a community reference group established. The councillors on it. We can have a couple of councillors appointed out of this council, and the following council will do the same when the following council comes back to all of the appointments of councillors on the community reference groups we've got. So this is not a council committee. This is a community reference group which has a couple of councillors on it. So the reason why we should defer to the fact that there's an election coming up and the council.
And we could use that couple of months to at least get some background information ready. That was the other thought. It wouldn't be any decision making. It'd be more like, is there some work that we could be doing just to start planning out, mapping out the site or land tenure or whatever it is. We could be doing some work in the background when nothing happens with that until the committee's there.
Councillor May.
Just a question in relation to the selection process for the councillors on the reference group. How is that going to be done?
We will do it exactly the same way as we've done for other reference groups. We'll send out an EOI, application returned by email, and then we'll circulate it to council with who's nominated, and we'll make the decision as a collective group.
So is that gonna happen shortly?
Well, it will have to happen.
Yeah.
If we pass this today, we'll get this underway straight away.
Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, just following on from that, I'm not sure that I understood the question properly, but what was the question, how the councillors were going to be appointed? Was that your
Yeah, well,
question?
what's the process gonna be for us to nominate for that committee or
Yeah.
put an expression of interest for that committee?
Well, on point 3, it says that will consist of a councillor as chairperson and up to 2 other councillors as appointed by the mayor.
And that's what I've said, I'll do exactly the same as I've done in others and send out an EOI. And then we will send out all the responses and do it as a collective body.
So it'll be done by council.
Well, it'll be appointed by me because we can't bring it back to council until the 12th, but we will send it out and then maybe we have it as a part of the council to catch up.
I think given the fact that it'll be a fairly controversial committee, I think it's putting you in a Vidi's situation to actually have to pick which 2 it is. I think it's better off the council making the decision, and I'd like to see this council just say it as appointed by the council rather than the mayor, because I think that's more transparent and I think it's better for you as the mayor as well.
Well, I have no problem with that, but that takes us to the 12th. CEO?
It doesn't matter, we can change that to whatever you like. Just say we do know there is delegation for the Mayor and CEO to appoint councillors on committees that aren't statutory committees of council. That's been in place for 2 or 3 years. And that's why the terms of reference says that way, because that's actually a delegation right now that the Mayor and CEO have to delegate councillors on a non-statutory committee. That doesn't necessarily have to apply to this, but that is the current delegation that's been in place.
Well, just following on from that, I think that in the interest of transparency, and given that it's going to be controversial, I think it's...
Why is it going to be controversial?
I think it will be, because I think there's going to be people who are going to question who's put on it. There's going to be a lot of people question who's put on that committee. So, and I just
From
think,
an external point of view?
From external point of view, yeah.
Let's have that discussion when we see who nominates, to go honest. And then, what I propose to do is be as transparent as possible. And as I said, we'll circulate it. We could probably even have a councillor catch-up around it, and we'll talk about it like that. But if we wait until taking it to a motion of council, we're up to the 12th of February, and that's it. That's the last meeting, so. Councillor May.
I think supposing that it's going to be controversial, that there's no grounds to that at all. I mean, this committee's being established out of a result of a motion of council that's about trying to move forward with the Memorial Swimming Centre as a whole. And I think, why would we want to undertake a different process of appointing councillors to a committee just for this committee? We have not done that in this term of council. We've followed the same process. We've asked for expressions of interest from councillors. The Mayor and the CEO make the decision. Why would we want to change that now?
We are in a question period over this particular agenda item. We're rapidly moving into the debate, which is outside of our standing orders. So if you have a question on it, we can take the questions, but I don't want to get into a debate before we've got a motion on the table. Councillor Ballard.
If we look at point 4, item 3, the ability to represent more than a single agenda or club or interest, then going back to item 2, understanding community issues relevant to the MSC, there's a kind of a conflict there in that really any expenditure on MSC is going to come from the broader community, their interests with regard to swimming facilities and that sort of thing, basically from Bloomsbury to Kamala. So on that community member, or committee of 10 community members, my query is, should we not quarantine a certain number of those spots for people from areas outside of the Mackay region itself, the Mackay urban area itself? So someone from the southern region, someone from west, someone from north. And if we don't actually get any expressions of interest regarding that, whether we could do any targeted requests for people to put their hand up, for the simple fact that it gives us like an overall idea of what is wanted by the region rather than just the urban area of Mackay for this facility.
you're asking whether we can actually target people to get
But what I'm saying is,
get
if
on
we
this
were to
committee,
quarantine
Councillor.
3 spots, one for south, one north, one west, if we didn't receive any, and I know we've got a couple from Serena are putting in, but so we didn't get anything from the west, whether we could do some targeted advertising for, hey, look, there is one quarantine spot for the Western region to have input into the redevelopment of that area, and that way they could represent views from the Pioneer Valley or whatever area they're from.
Well, this is a community reference group. I think we're really trying to blow this out of proportion. We're opening up this community reference group to those who are interested in being on a community reference group to design the future of that particular site. If you have a problem with what is in 4 and the 3 items in 4 about a selection criteria, then we could probably address that. But I don't think we're going to go targeting any members of our community. We've never done any of that.
I meant
before.
targeting, if you had listened, targeting advertising of a position for someone from a geographical area.
Yeah,
And I clearly stated
that's
that.
targeting. Okay, so Councillor Bonaventura.
Well, to follow on Councillor Ballack, could we just put a point 4 there and say that a minimum of 3 members should be sourced from the wider Mackay region, i.e. Serena, Marion, Morani or the North Coast? Would that be simple enough to do?
Happy to accept that.
I think that would simply cover it, and it makes
There'd
it.
be some councils that wouldn't be happy with that.
Well, that's why I'm asking councillors give that their consideration as part of
So
just
hang on, I'll take
change that.
Okay. What was that wording again?
Oh, I would just say that a minimum of 3 members should be sourced from the wider Mackay region, i.e. Serena, Morani, Marion or the North Coast. And you don't need to put the regions in even, just, that a minimum of 3 members should be sourced from the wider Mackay region. That might come naturally, but it just gives some incentive out there to those out there to say that yes, we are open to accept people from the wider region to discuss this important issue.
Councillor Engler, question?
Would the way that you intend to do the EOI exclude anyone from the wider Mackay region from applying if they wanted to do it? So anyone from anywhere in the Mackay region can apply for this committee if they are passionate about
the whole of our footprint.
So it's completely transparent and equitable as you would like to deliver it. Yes? Okay.
See you.
Yep. Doesn't exclude anybody.
Councillor Cameron, a question?
My question is, this is a community reference group, not a statutory advisory committee to council,
It's got
so
no
therefore
power.
it has no power. It is a community group that can brainstorm some ideas, but the elected members at this table represent the interests of the entire community, are the ones that actually get to vote and decide on the future of the site. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This committee has no power. It is a reference group, which is being set up at the direction of this council at the last meeting. Okay, so Councillor Anglin, you've got a subsequent question.
Just a question. I need some guidance with regards to my decision making on this. There's been some mention around, and not to go into debate, but what I'm after is guidance. Should we be considering, when we're making decisions in this place, that there's an election coming up, or should we be in any way, or should we be making decisions on the issue as it comes to us, as we're designed to do originally? Or should we be altering our decision-making process because there's an election coming up?
No, absolutely not.
Thank you
The
for your
council is
advice.
the council until the council has been replaced by a new one.
Thank you for your advice, Mayor.
All right, anything further? CEO, did you have another question?
No, I just wanted, is it the general council's view not to add?
Well, we can only test that by an amendment. We can only test that by an amendment.
Are you happy to take an
Well,
amendment?
we haven't got a
on
motion yet, so I'm not amending a motion that we haven't got yet. So, would somebody like to move the adoption? Councillor Cam moves, Councillor May seconds. Councillor Cam, wants to speak?
I do, Your Worship, given I also move the motion which directs council to form this committee as well, and it's been a long time coming. Certainly the community have wanted to see action and clear leadership on what would be the future of the memorial site, and I was pleased to be able to carry out media on behalf of council over the Christmas break, where there was a lot of interest shown by the community to get involved. And the beauty of this community group is the fact that through the selection criteria that we will leave to the CEO and the director and whoever else will be involved, is it clearly outlines that we are looking for 10 committed community members from across the region who certainly meet the requirements, no other than have the ability to represent more than one single agenda or club or interest, demonstrate strong community networks and an understanding of the community issues relevant to the Mackay Memorial Swim Centre, and also that they have an endorsement by a community group or represent a group across our community as well. And I think that that's keeping in line with the recognition that this council adopted that the Memorial Swimming Centre is a valuable community asset in our council aquatic strategy. So I look forward to ensuring that we have a broad promotion of this opportunity across our broader region, and the expression of interest come in, and that hopefully the CEO can make a decision in time for our next February meeting to get the first meeting happening with the community, because I know it's an expectation of this community that we just get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Bonaventura, you wish to move an amendment?
I do, Your Worship. And it would be that the officer's recommendation add the following. That the council, as per the provisions of section 264 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, establish the Memorial Swimming Centre Community Reference Group and adopt the associated terms of reference with the inclusion of an additional reference point to number 4 to state that a minimum of 3 members should be sourced from the wider region, wider Mackay region.
Okay, thank you. Second to the amendment. Thank you very much. I think you've spoken. You wish to speak to the amendment?
Your Worship, I have spoken to it.
Yeah,
I just think that it's important that we make sure that we do be transparent and open, and people realise that yes, it is the Memorial Swimming Centre in the city, but it represents represents the wider region of Mackay, and they have their ability to be part of that decision-making process.
Speaker against? Councillor G.
Amendment.
This is the amendment we're debating right now.
Yeah. Basically, I don't think location is the issue, so I'd like to hold it as it is. But I think age demographics probably more relevant to that, so it lasts longer. But that will be in my vote, and I think this could capture it. As a councillor, I'll be going out to a lot of young people and actually saying, "Are you interested in the memorial pool and how it's going to look when you're 60 or 70 years old?" and attack it from that angle.
Thanks, Councillor G. Speaker 4, Councillor Ballard.
Overall, I'm relatively happy with all of the points. I'd like to see the point that Councillor Bonaventura raised included, for the simple fact that by its very nature, these reference groups tend to be people that are directly concerned with what we're talking about. They don't have a wider perspective, and there is a perspective that's in our regional areas that is completely different to what is often in the urban area regarding things that are done in the urban area. And I think that perspective, we see affirmative action in so many other areas, and I think this is one area where we have the opportunity to actively seek the perspective of people that aren't just 3 or 4 kilometres away from a facility in the urban area.
Okay, Speaker against? Councillor England.
Your Worship, this motion makes a lot of assumptions about who may or may not be on this. The original motion clearly, has options open to anyone with our community. I mean, this motion is about, that's the picking and choosing one. Now you're excluding people who are passionate. So by saying, we want someone from Moranny, are we excluding someone from Kalen now because they would have got that spot if the Moranny person hadn't got theirs? The original motion is inclusive and transparent, and I don't agree with this picking. When you start picking people out because because of something other than they're passionate about it, then you've got the wrong people on that.
Speaker 4. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? The amendment as moved is attaching item 4 to paragraph 4, which will read a minimum of 3 members.
I can read it out if you like, Mayor.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
well, apologise, councillors, it's just a new system. I'll read it out for you. I'm happy with the wording reflects that the council, as per the provisions of section 264 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, establish the Memorial Swimming Centre Community Reference Group and adopt the associated terms of reference with the inclusion of an additional reference point to number 4 to state that a minimum of 3 members be sourced from the wider Mackay region. So that's what's on. I've got here. So
That's correct.
Are you happy with that?
Correct, that is what I asked for.
I'll put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against the amendment's lost. Let's come back to, we've already got a motion on the table. Councillor Cam spoke to it. Is there a speaker against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really just wanted to say, like this is a great outcome because we have been working extremely hard with community through the original motion, and now being able to see this come to fruition is such a great thing, and to have that equitable across our region, giving everybody a fair go to be part of this moving forward. I think there's only good things to come out of this, so I think, let's get on with the job.
Any other speakers? Yes,
Yeah,
Councillor Walker.
I'm happy to support it, but I just hope that the councillors that are appointed have this strong consultation with the whole council on who should go on that, rather than just the mayor making the decision. So based on what you're saying, you're giving that undertaking that the whole council will be involved in it, and you're going to take advice from council. I'm happy to support it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mann, you're speaking for?
Yeah. So just a couple of points for me. These terms of reference went out to everybody to comment. So everybody has had their opportunity before today to make their comment relevant to how they're thinking. The other thing is we were all advised that we could distribute those terms of reference once the ad was in the paper to all our networks. So all our networks have had the opportunity to be part of this community reference group should they choose to. So I think there has been adequate publicity and adequate time for everybody to express their interest.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to the Capital Works monthly review for December 2019. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. No major injuries or incidents for December and year to date in this department, which is great. You'll see the total spend is 45 million, around 99% of forecast. However, you're all pretty bright people who realise we need to spend 70 or 80 million in the last 6 months. So that's still the plan. We have a reforecast coming next couple of weeks, so we'll give you an update on all those. Great to see 3.5 million of contracts awarded for capital in December. Out, and almost all of those were local from memory, maybe 1 or 2 weren't. The Fishing Pier, Queen's Park, Resource Centre of Excellence and many other projects are all tracking well, completed on time, within our general time what we said. And I've already had a councillor comment that the Harbour Road shared pathway project's up and running, so it's a great project that we now start seeing going as well.
Questions for the CEO on this report? No questions? Okay, you have a question, Councillor Bonventura?
I gather I'm in the right section, Your Worship. It's all over the place at the moment. Just in relation to question 4.1 on the design summary report, in relation to the Marzan Street, I thought we were waiting for the results of the changed traffic light rotations before we were going to implement any traffic calming devices.
4.1, CEO.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bonventura. I'll read this straight out from my staff. A petition was put in from residents about a business case around Marsden Street traffic calming. Came in, we received the petition. In reviewing the business case, an approach was made to DTMR to see if a change in the signal prioritisation could address the rat running issue. This was not possible. DTMR didn't agree that there was a provision, so designers commenced for traffic calming.
All right, and just the other final question on that, have we spoken directly to residents whose amenity will be affected by those traffic calming devices, and what type of device will we install?
CEO.
Thank you again. Our current concept recommends an indented T using concrete islands. I'm sure you know what that is.
Yes.
And we have gone through design, and as we normally do, once we've got the concept designs, we'll go out and talk to the residents before anything's constructed. It's our normal process. We don't go out till we've got that design ready, and we're working on the design for that now. So then we'll go out and consult.
Are we putting raised speed humps as part of that?
Director.
Yeah, in George Fordyce there will be. So some speed cushions, they're called.
Speed cushions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will.
That's the concept. At the moment we're still in detailed design, and until we have that detailed design completed, we won't know exactly what's going where.
Your Worship, I do worry about speed cushions of any type because the thumping sound of vehicles crossing them do affect the amenity for residents directly on either side of that. Yep. So I just would like to know that we are really talking to residents about that.
Consultation. Yep.
Yeah, so that consultation will occur as soon as that detailed design is completed, which is very shortly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions? Somebody like to move the adoption of the Capital Works report? Councillor Payton moves. Councillor Walker seconds. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Worship. I'll just keep it quick. It's great to see the year-to-date capital delivery up at 98.88%. This is an improvement on last month, definitely. Good to see no LTIs, which continues in this area, directorate area as well. And the $3.5 million of projects approved through December, which we'd see go into the Mackay region. And it's good also to see the Mackay Harbour shared path start out. I think everybody will be keen to see that happen, and just in time for the marina run.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Payton. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. 11.3.1 is the Community and Client Services Monthly Review for December 2019. Good report. I especially note the annual welfare, the Animal Welfare Centre achieving a second year where no healthy, rehomable dogs were put down. So that's outstanding for our region. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. No LTIs for the year in this department. However, you noted a number of incidents involving the public that's been mentioned before by Councillor Mann. The department's budget is tracking to plan. A very successful inaugural Disability Expo, which is a great initiative and very well received, I believe. We've funded 11 Community Australia Day events around the region this weekend, which is very good again. Just a comment, it's been going a while, that the Mackay Basketball Better Community Building Fund that was given a long, long time ago, now they've got federal funding, should be able to progress with all the others basically complete.
Hope so. Thanks very much, CEO. Questions for the CEO on this report? Councillor Payton.
Just in relation to page 111, the library digital loans. The graph there, you can see there's a huge increase in digital loans for December. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the library team for making this happen. But just wondering what changes were put in place to make this happen. Has there been promotion or
CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. I'll read from my staff. Social media promotion was done in December, which has been quite positive. There's iPads now on all library counters to drive customer interest in available content and platforms that people are using. And there's been also active staff promotion of Press Reader, which is one of our digital newspaper and magazine platforms. So all of that combined has seemed to have worked in terms of the promotion and the activity.
great work for the staff?
Councillor G.
Regarding the star rating for food outlets, 2-star and no star, are they actually closed down till they rectify?
CEO.
Good question.
Acting
director will probably surely have.
I didn't know there was a 2-star.
Sorry, it's the wording of very, very unclean premises, poor hygiene practices, and that's a 2-star. Then you drop down to no star and you don't want to know how that reads. So do we hold the stick on those issues?
I'll get the director, acting director.
We absolutely do. See, it does trigger in the county infringement processes, And once we get down to a 0-star, any business that receives a 0-star rating, there's a lot of work done in that space particularly, and businesses generally cease operating at that point until they can actually perform the rectification works.
Very good. Further questions? Another one, Councillor G.
Accommodation non-compliance is at 43%. Does this capture the Airbnb market?
Director? Can we take that on notice and get back to you?
Yep.
Another one?
67% of swimming pools are non-compliant. What's our action? And we identify it. How do we act past that point? How quickly do we respond and force?
CEO.
It's as per our timelines, as per the policy. So it's like the infringement notice for an eatery or anything else. There's written in steps in the process, like overgrown allotments. You give the first process, you go through. If they comply, it ends. If they don't comply, you go to the next step. So I'd have to send around exact timelines, but it'll be exactly as per that requirement under our local law.
Thanks. All right. Further questions? Councillor Walker.
Yeah, the non-compliance with the accommodation, just following on from Councillor G, are we talking about sort of serious issues here? What are we actually talking about here?
Good question. So can we take that on notice and we'll circulate that to the council? Thanks, Councillor Walker. Any further questions? Councillor Angler.
I'm afraid here I go again, Your Worship. Electronic 135, I note that another 22 SES volunteers have been written off the bottom line, and we haven't got to the blue card scenario in March yet. I refer to the independent assessment done in 2014. An independent auditor investigated a point of truth for the Mackay Regional SCS unit, including active members, probation members and numbers of reserves, which came to a total of 332 volunteers, and we're now at 144, which is less than 50 volunteers more than when Council of the Day in 2008 said 95 wasn't enough. I also have real concerns about the references to operational capability. As I mentioned at the last meeting, I see that purely as this is what we're trained in rather than capability, and the reference to other units coming and helping us. Now, I'm aware that Isaac is also showing a critically manned state for their SES volunteers and can't even provide a road crash rescue service anymore, which would be their highest priority.
Do you have a question?
The question is, I have some real concerns about the QFIS reporting, and my question is, should we be the one of two options? Should we be appointing again an independent auditor to have a look, or is this something that can be referred to the Strategic Advisory Group for a look at?
I'd certainly like the Strategic Advisory Group to be the first cab off the rank if they're going to ask that question to be asked. But CEO?
Yeah, I think the question is probably something I can't answer. Happy to do what the councillors want. Any of those options are obviously possible. We can direct it to the Strategic Direction Group, or we could do. I just need to work out scope and agree what that scope is, and that would be the critical part. How we do that and check back with council. What's the timing of it? That would be just my questions.
Can you just take that up then with the councillor? And I think the first cab off the rank, because we have a strategic group, that should be where it goes first.
Fair enough.
Okay. Councillor Campbell, good question?
Yeah, it's a question that follows on from that really. 22 deemed inactive volunteers over the course of 1 month from November to December. So my question, I'm happy for this to be taken on notice and more information to be circulated, is it's in relation to not having completed core training. Is that because they're not here anymore? The training's not offered? It's, what is the reason is my question, and if we can have further information around that, because the comment I take issue with is that note that reduction in numbers has not translated to a reduction in operational capability. I challenge that with 22 less arms and legs and people, that doesn't impact operational capability if we had what our neighbouring councils in New South Wales and Victoria and, or another Cyclone Debbie, that doesn't affect operational capability. We're talking about 22 volunteers that have just fallen off from November to December. So I don't think that's acceptable, given we do have a strategic group, but who's dealing with the day-to-day right now that's enabling these men, women and anyone else who wants to volunteer to
Right,
ensure
so
that
the
they're
question
there.
is,
I think everyone gets the point though. Like the report says it doesn't impact our capability of 22 people falling off the wagon, but I struggle that that's the case.
can we take that on board?
Yeah, and we'll get you the information back as the first one. Just to comment, one of the 4 or 5 strategies that this council agreed to work through with the strategic director group was around organisational capability and training, and about, I think it's fair to say we probably have a different opinion than QFIS on what is capability for a specific group. We're still debating on what's a group. So I think it's something that's been worked through that we haven't really brought to bed yet. But it is one of those ones that what that comment would be, rightly or wrongly, is if you've got a crew of 10, we've got one boat, one person who can jump off cliffs and things. Wrong terminology, Councillor England. That's enough.
You're talking about functions.
Yeah,
Yes,
functions.
yes,
So capability functions.
Yeah.
So that group has enough people trained, even though 22 have left, to handle most situations. Now the issue is, what's a situation, how frequent, what else is going on? That's where it gets very difficult, and I know, not speaking on behalf of the 2 councils on the strategic direction group, but I struggle, analytically to work out what is right and wrong, and there's views everywhere. So that's why it's still one of the ones to sort out, and we haven't cracked it yet, Councillor Cairn, but it's something that through that report and everything else we need to sort it out.
okay. Further questions? Okay, would somebody like to move the report then? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Payton. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Ursula. So, a couple of things that I was really pleased to see, and that was the inaugural Disability Expo, which was held at Gordon White Library. I did attend that, and it was very well attended, and not only by patrons, but by service providers as well, and a whole range of different initiatives and services available to people with a disability. The other thing in conjunction with that was the community programs partnered with Art Synergy to host, I guess, a display in the foyer from people with disability in our region, and different artworks, art in different mediums. So that was really well done, and it's still on show, I think, until the 16th. We're past the 16th of January. It's finished. But that was a really good initiative in conjunction with Week of Disability and what we tried to achieve with the Disability Expo. Serena Youth Centre, are kicking some real goals at the moment, and I was really pleased to see their holiday programs to keep youth safe and connected. There was things like holiday craft, board games, pool competitions, cooking and tech-free days. I did happen to see an interview on Channel 7 on some of those programs, and there looked like to be a lot of people taking those programs up, so that was really well done, and I hope to see them continue to kick the goals they are, because they're getting a lot of support from the community as well. Art Space Mackay have a number of exhibitions, including Sacred Ink, which is connecting culture, and it's a photographic exhibition delivered in partnership with Badasia. So that's our Mackay and District South Sea Islanders Association members, and the exhibition talks about the reasons that they've had tattoos and the connection to their culture. So I think it's really well worth having a look at, and that does run till February 2020. And just on a final note, I would just like to mention Alicia Stevenson and the work that she's done in our museums, and certainly that was relayed to us in December by our museum volunteers. It's been nothing but positive for her coming on board, so I'm really pleased to see that our museums are developing more under her leadership.
Thanks, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Development Services monthly review at 11.4.1 CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I think I talked about the LTI that occurred in December. This ended up being an LTI when an operator got caught as he was embarking a small digger. And then there's another one in January, as talked about before. The budget for the department's tracking favourably, and we expect it to be back in line with budget. As a timing issue with some of the favourable costs. 2019 calendar year saw the highest number of development assessment applications since 2015 at over 300, which is fantastic. You'll note 4 operational works applications were approved in December, valued at 1.35 million. My last comment is our wonderful parks crews are out trying to beat the grass from mowing, but I think we're losing.
Questions for the CEO on the Development Services report? Councillor Moore.
Well, I guess it's probably a question and a comment. the economic indicators for up until June 19, and that's the latest figures that are in there. It's got the unemployment rate at 5.8%, and the month before it was 4.4, so there's been a huge increase in the unemployment rate. And then you look at employed persons, they've gone from 62,500 in March to 56 in June 19. There's a hell of a drop off there from the previous quarter. And I suppose to even make it more confusing, the residential vacancy rate's gone from 2.9% down to 1.5%. It's, I don't know, there must be a hell of a time lag or something involved in this, but those figures are pretty alarming in heading in the wrong direction. But I'd assume since then that there's been a substantial turnaround based on what you see.
Can you comment on it?
I think this is a problem. I think I might talk to the director about this going forward, because we've got 6-month-old data that we know is out of date. I know the unemployment's got a 3 in front of it, or a low 4. So I think we only use formalised data in this report, but we get anecdotal data in the meantime that's different to that. So I think we just got to look at how we're reporting. And the numbers are right because that's formal, but we know for a fact things have changed. So we don't also report unofficial data. So I think we need to have a look at how we do this to get a better track on trending and things, and not use anecdotal, but make sure we get that information. I think we've got to do it because this is a common comment that comes up around it seems to be out of date, so we almost don't take any notice of it. So we'll have a look at that.
I certainly questioned all of that as well, and the answer that I got was based around the use of certain statistics. So there's wide area statistics and there's small area statistics. And it's the veracity of how you actually interact those two areas together. And well, statistics can be very challenging at the best of times. But so I've certainly raised those questions as well, because it's very important for us as a region to actually have the right sort of statistics associated with us. So we'll take that on board, because it's very, very important that we actually report relative figures. Are there other questions? Councillor May.
Just on page 156 in relation to the Serena Town Centre Revitalisation Study, and it says in the report there that we're going to continue to liaise with the state about including this project in future planning. I'm just wondering where are we at with that, given that there is a state government election coming? And are we now in a position to be advocating for funding of that particular project? And I also know from previous that there was money from the state that was set aside that was going to be used to do some pavement work on the highway through Serena that was put on hold pending this. So I'm very conscious of we're getting, we're halfway through the budget year. We don't want to lose any money that the state may have set aside, and I mean, now is the opportunity to be advocating for funding for this project, given that it's 3 levels of government that need to be involved in it, so local, state and federal.
Yeah, CEO.
All excellent questions. So as you know, it's a shovel-ready project that was agreed to get to the stage where it is now, and my plan is that there's a briefing being set for the 12th of February to talk to councillors around election priorities for our 3 state seats, that myself and the officers are working on putting up some suggestions. Even though it won't be necessarily the council that will decide what they are, I want to use the general intent to do some work to have packages of projects ready for candidates in those 3 seats, early April. Part of that would be this project would be on that list to bring up. So that's planned for, we've done a fair bit of work on it. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks to discuss with council on what they would want us to work on during caretaker mode.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Mullins, you have a question?
Basically just to congratulate staff, I think, on the Welcome to Mackay package, which I read is being developed by the Economic Development Section, and just wanting to know whether councils will get a bit of a sneak peek of that before it comes out, Your Worship.
I think we should have to do that. Yes. Okay? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will. No further questions? Somebody like to move the rules adoption, please? Councillor Cam moves. Councillor Anglett seconds. Councillor Cam.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make note of a couple of items, and it's good to see with the uptake in development that all of the timeframes around the legislative timeframes was met by the department, so we can pass on our thanks to them as well. And in particular, I just wanted to acknowledge the Parks team under Richard Brown's leadership and in particular the Christmas in the Gardens that I attended in December. Feels like a year ago now. But to Richard's team and in particular Simone, it was the largest numbers they'd had there for some time because there was no rain. So as much as we wanted rain, they needed it to be dry that day, and it was great. There were families and young and old all out, and some great community-based entertainment as well with dance schools and local singers and performers, which was wonderful. And also make note to the team, both from corporate comms as well, and parks and all those involved in the Camilleri Street Park development, delivery, and also the opening. We had over 100 people attend that opening, which was fantastic to see. And anyone who's been out that way, or for those of us that live out that way, that park is full of kids and adults, utilising all of those facilities there. So it's been a great addition, and I know that they're very keen to see further stages and more shade and amenity out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Let's move on to the ECI reports now for December, and the first one is water. CEO.
Safety's good in the department, all working well. Department budget overall is tracking the plan. You will hear me say in the next couple of weeks we do have some concerns about water revenue, and obviously it's unfavourable. We'll work through that as the budget reforecast. Great to see 10 new trade waste approvals for December. You'll notice Dumbleton, Morani and Marion Weirs are all still at 100% capacity. Timbers at 86, Middle Creek's at 50, and that was at the end of December, so it would have come up a little bit since the rain, and Peter Faust at 68. And all other critical KPIs and performances tracking well in the department.
Questions for the CEO on the ECI water report? Councillor Payton.
Your Worship, page 179, water testing sampling. Just looking at the graph there seems to be a definite downward trend to the number of tests and samples that are being carried out. And just around that, we've got the new lab building, and that I would have expected that we'd see an increase. So I was just wondering what's happening in this space and what are the plans to turn this around?
CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Payton. So our internal testing numbers has remained consistent, so there's no change in what we use internally our lab for. There is a little bit over the Christmas period, typically the external parties, a lot of it depends on projects and things, so we had a drop off in external. We think that'll come back again from January. We know that the Bowen sewage treatment plant upgrade that Whitsunday Council is, we're going to be doing the analysis from that, so we expect that to pick up. So that's the operational transactional side. And then we had 2 reports done around that lab. One was a review of the roles and responsibilities of the staff in there, and that's done November, December. SLPT last week agreed that there's a bit of confusion about who's doing what, so it's a good chance to do it. So we're off doing that with the staff, which they're keen on. It's not about changing numbers, it's about being clear on roles and responsibilities. And then the second one we have, which we're about to speak about, is a draft report about future opportunities around the lab, growing and doing more work outside of what we currently do. That is actually drafted. We're now going to talk about SLPT. It's out. We're just working through some inaccuracies that just sort through. So that'll be ready to also, to be honest, probably talk about with the new council. We'll do the restructure stuff, not the restructure, the roles and responsibilities, get all that right, and then we'll be ready to talk about future growth opportunities as well.
Okay. Councillor Bonaventure.
Yes, Your Worship, just page 184 in relation to water consumption by locality. I note that despite our idea of last month, there was some targeted advertising, naming streets to try and reduce the water usage in the Marion Morani area, it has actually still gone up. So I think A proves that didn't work, but what options are we looking at now to reduce water usage if this is a problem?
Snipers.
Well, obviously the previous attempt...
I'm only joking, racing home.
That's a new type of valve.
Look, it's this data is obviously the end of December. Council Bonaventure review just to see what's happening in January after the rain. It's like that is, and obviously weather dependent. You're right. In the end, we tried to take a reactive approach to high usage. If that hasn't worked, we'll have to work out what else we do after we see the data. As it keeps raining, it'll probably drop, and then we'll forget about it. But yeah, we need to just keep having a look at the options.
That's it.
Thank
Yeah, it is a problem. Are there further questions for the CEO, Councillor Payton?
Yeah, sorry, I missed one here, but just page 185, the water aesthetic parameters and sample results. I noted that I want to know whether the Serena water softener is working correctly or as designed, because we're still seeing that aesthetic levels above the parameters they should be.
So
Yeah, I think Councillor Eaton.
Eaton water.
Yeah, you mentioned Serena, that's right. Oh, yeah, no, you're great. Yeah, so there was a program issue that allowed a bypass to kick in when the brine level was low, and it wasn't picked up until the first test results. So that programming issue has been sorted now. So when the brine level was low, the bypass went, so it wasn't going through the plant. So no one knew about that programming error because it only just happened. So that's been rectified now. So it's all been going back through. So that particular issue can't happen again from a programming point of view. So that's what those results indicate.
Okay, so we'll expect that the results should come back down.
Yeah, back to normal levels.
Thank you.
further questions? Somebody like to move the reports of adoption? Councillor Payton moves, seconded by Councillor England. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Rashid. Another good report for the month from Water Services. I'd just like to mainly touch around the end of year council staff awards. There's many acknowledgements in this directorate, mainly those ones around excellent client services, trainee of the year, leadership and excellence, and there was a winner of the star and one in the team award. So it's obviously a team that are working well together.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. ECI Transport and Drainage is the next report at 5.2. CEO.
Yeah, thank you. I just will mention of our 110 lost days from 2 LTIs prior to the end of September. One of those was 99, was our younger employee. So he's still off work. He is getting better, very, very keen to get back to work, but we're making sure, because it's a head injury, making sure everything's okay. So I'm still optimistic he'll come back to work shortly. Budget-wise, all fine for the department. We have recommenced slashing of the roads since the rain. We, as you know, we'd stopped that as a fire risk, but we've now reinitiated that work, and we'll keep an eye on it if it gets dry again. I would like to say, and I've had some positive comments myself back from the public about how our unsealed road network has held up in the recent rain. I think it's been very, very good and shows that the extra money that's been put in, but also the new practice that's been in place from the team is working very well. So it's very, very positive. The bitumen sealing of the replacement deck on Chelman's Road is scheduled for later in January. And I was up with the Director of Capital, Director of ECI, and we went and visited the Boundary Road Causeway upgrade, which the deck is now basically on, and that's on track in the next month or two to finish. We talked to a couple of residents who are waiting there, so they're very keen to get that all finished, but it's looking pretty good.
Questions for the CEO on this ECI report? No questions. Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor May. Councillor Mann.
Thank you. I feel like I'm stealing Councillor Casey's thunder. You normally this report. It was really good to see the amount of unsealed road network grading that did get done in December, and as the CEO pointed out, the dry weather helped that along, and it was really good to see that there wasn't too much damage with that heavy rain that experienced around Christmas time. It's really surprising to see actually how many road signs we replace every month. And what the monthly average is. So that's a lot of signs, and that's something that people don't take into account that this program actually does. So, and if you note when you drive around yourself, you do see, a lot of damaged signs. So it's really good that people are reporting it. And the other notable thing was the amount of drainage maintenance that got done as well, because that would be a huge job for this team to keep up with as well. And especially we're still in the storm season, so I know they're very mindful of making sure they keep up with it. And I'm just not sure why the CEO keeps looking at me when we talk about workplace health and safety. Every time he gets up to address a report, he looks at me. Mm-hmm. So while nobody wants to see any LTIs, I know that staff are very focused on safety as usual.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura.
I'd just like to sort of put out a congratulations to staff. Over the Christmas break, there was a 19-man crew that worked through the closure period, and they looked after the essentials of sweeping streets and cleaning the city centre and open drain maintenance where necessary, etc. So just congratulations to them who worked through that period for us.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Here. Okay, any other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I really just wanted to highlight the asset management progress that we're making there. You see in the report that the Parks and Environment Sustainability is piloting the project in that particular area. And a really big part of the work that's happening across the organisation is the data cleansing, and that's been a staged approach working through various different parts of council. So we're starting to see, I think, you know, our head above water as far as asset management, making sure our systems are being implemented properly and it's working across the whole organisation. So congratulations to the asset management team.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Thanks, Councillor May. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. ECI Waste is at 5.3. CEO.
I won't talk about safety or budget, it's all tracking well. Dumping up the redemption rate at 17% for the period, higher than the same time last year. Not sure whether that's related to weather or anything else. You'll see that there's a comment in there that glass from our MRF was incorporated into gravel used to repair Hogan's Pocket landfill. If that's successful, we're very excited about what that might mean about other opportunities going forward. And as you'll see, the rest of the KPIs are tracking at or above target, very few complaints, and everything's running very well.
Thanks very much, CEO. Questions for the CEO on this one? Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Worship. Just a general question about the fixed plant grab that's at the Paget Waste transfer station then in the pit. It appears that it hasn't been working for a long period, and the contractors are using a small excavator in there, which I think would be a higher risk activity. So I'm just wondering what's happening with it, whether, you know, how long it's going to be, and what is the problem?
CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Payton. I'll pretend I knew the answer before my staff gave to me this morning. It's been out of action because Suez, the contractor, hasn't got any information on the device. So they've had to go and try to find a national contact so they had no paperwork on it. So they've now found that national contact, and now they're able to go directly and get the spares that's required to get it done. So we expect it to be not too long now, but that was the reason behind it. There's no information they had on that particular device, so they struggled to find anyone who knew anything about it. That's now been sorted, so they've got that now.
No, good, because like I say, it looks like a bit of a high risk activity the way they're doing it now.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Payne. Councillor Bonaventura.
Oh, Your Worship, well, it's good to see that the glass being used on that road, as the CEO said. But I was out there the other day, there's still a large stockpile of glass. Are there plans to continue to use it in that format, or?
I think that report said that there was a trial, wasn't it? So that,
yeah, no, it's exactly right, Councillor Bonaventura. So assuming that trials are right, that's what we'll keep doing. Regroup's also selling glass with other engineering products which are non-council. They did naturally slow over the Christmas period because those other organisations that buy to slow down. We expect it to pick back up again. So you're right, the pile's large, but we're quite comfortable it'll come down very quickly. And as you mentioned as well, that Hogan's Pocket trial could be quite good if that's successful. What else we could do with that product?
It'd be very, very good, Your Worship. Thank you.
Further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption, please? Councillor Payton moves, seconded by Councillor Engler. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Worship. Another good month without any LTIs in the waste services area. Just noting the waste to the landfill, that still remains very low from the MRF. So obviously, I suppose it's a compliment to our community as well, as not putting this rubbish into our recyclables, but also on the facility itself, that they're being very efficient with it. I'd like to mention about the initiative with the glass to the road base. It's great to see our staff looking at these initiatives. I think going forwards with the zero waste to landfill, that we will need to be looking at our own recycling initiatives within our own businesses. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Payton. Speaker against? Any other speakers? For the motion, those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thanks. 11.6.1 now is the Org Services Monthly Review for December, CEO.
Safety in the department's been good for a couple of years, no major incidents, great. Apart from budget, as you'd expect from the accountants, you'd expect if any department stays on budget to be the accountants, as long as they don't make adjustments. Great to see the customer service team continues to achieve high levels of customer satisfaction. Very, very pleasing how that's all going. You will notice that we have had troubles in the last few months about IS KPIs, but you'll notice that
incident service request backup is excellent, and that's a great effort. It may seem minor to some, but the annual review of our enterprise risk management was completed in December. It's a very large, very benchmark process we have in this organisation now, and I know from the people in governance said that the interaction of managers and the rest of the staff into that process was excellent. I didn't have to follow it up. There's a real buy-in about risk management, which is excellent. You will note that in December, there's a lot of people going to our aquatic facilities. They're all being really well used, so that's fantastic.
Very good. Questions for the CEO? Councillor Payne.
Yeah, Your Worship, just in relation, CEO mentioned the information services total count graph that's on page 228. Once again, I'd say it's good to see that backlog has reduced. Congratulations to the staff because it has been trending up for a long period, but I would like to know what the changes are being made to make that occur.
CEO?
Yeah, we did have some resource issues in there. Councillor Payton, you probably recall that previous months we said we were struggling to fill some roles. We have now filled them, and the expertise and their experience in now doing backlogs is exactly what we wanted. They're now getting experience, and now we're eating into our backlog. So we've got the right people in the right roles now. We've got enough people in there, and now we're bringing it down. We expect to see the KPI improve even more as a result of having those people in there now. We're just struggling to have enough arms and legs to get on top of it.
Thanks, Councillor Payton. Any other questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
Well, just on page 231, I noticed our water industry worker pilot program, which I've got a bit of interest in actually, is going well. Can someone just let me know when that's finishing? When do those people graduate from that?
Oh, right, okay. So, yeah.
June 2020?
June this year?
Yep.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption, please? Councillor Mann moves. Councillor Walker seconds. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. So, safety focus again, and I will mention again because no LTIs since 1718, which is a fantastic result. A lot of safety activities completed in December, including procedure reviews and attendance at local safety networking meetings, and I think that's really important that we gather what everybody else around the region is doing as well, just for comparison. External customer service KPI being exceeded. Especially want to mention greater service with 96% of calls being answered within 60 seconds. Our staff in the shared service centre do an amazing job. Sometimes it's frontline workers that don't get the thanks that they deserve. They have to have a lot of knowledge, and I think they do an exceptional job in what they do. Just in terms of the staff shortages in ICT, I'm really pleased to see that we are going to be working with Microsoft to see if we can develop a traineeship program or even a cadetship. And I know those talks are supposed to be happening in January, so I'd be really interested to see how we come out with that because I think it's a really valuable area and something that could be shared all around the region as well with the knowledge that we might gain from that. Key activities and financial performance are all on track and business improvement initiatives going well, so really good to see.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Let's move on to 11.6.2 now. It's the Strategic Financial Report for the month of December. This is a good report. It's all on track, and we've got a reforecast coming up to the next meeting. So are there any other questions around this? Councillor Payton?
I might have to go to accounting for dummies, but I'll ask this question. Page 254 is the statement of financial position around the other liabilities. The actual report for other liabilities, the actual result for the other liabilities is 12.5 million compared to a revised budget of 0. I was just wondering what the discrepancy is there.
Okay, I'll ask the Director to reply to that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Other liabilities mainly relates to unearned revenue. There is a new accounting standard that comes into effect in this financial year where we have to recognise revenue at different times than we have in the past. So that's having an impact on how we actually forecast that because it is new. So we're just working our way through the forecast to get an accurate picture because it all depends on it's mainly to do with timing of grants and rates paid in advance. So yeah, we're just trying to get a handle on that. So we're working our way through that at the moment.
Thank you. Good explanation. Okay, further questions? No further questions for this report. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Payton moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Worship. The CEO said most of it with this strategic financial report. Still looking at operational budget showing surplus of 130,000 for 2020. But even though we're sitting at 1.3 million favourable, we've still got 5 months to go, so there's a lot of juggling to happen.
Thanks very much. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. 11.6.3 is the January 2020 budget review. The recommendation here has 2 parts to it, so I propose actually to deal with those 2 parts as a separate resolution each. So CEO, do you want to speak to this?
Just very quickly on each one. The first one's strategic land purchase. The council's endorsed in December the actual principle of this. Obviously need budget, which is what that request is for. And the second one is a approved 1920 capital budget project that after tenders and scope definitions and everything, we don't have enough money. So we've come back to us what the council's view about whether we get the extra money to complete the project or not.
Okay, are there questions? No questions. So the first resolution will be around that council approves the increase in capital expenditure for a strategic land purchase, 2.697 million, as part of the January budget review. So we'll deal with that one as a resolution 1 first, Pam, if you wouldn't mind. Councillor May moves. Councillor Walker seconds. Councillor May.
It's pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Those against? The motion is carried. Let's move on then to the second resolution that council approves the increase of capital expenditure for the Mackay tourism kiosk. This is a $170,000 651 as part of the January budget review, with the increase to be incorporated into the approved amended budget. It's moved by Councillor Englert, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Englert.
Further, I reply if necessary.
Okay, well, if you're not going to speak to
I'll
it.
speak to it then.
Yes.
Thank you, Worship. Okay, so as explained, this extra amount is as a result of not any large stuff up. It's just the market dictates that it's going to cost more money than originally thought. So the question is it worth going on with this project? So council actually paid for this report about visitor services and information centre. In the report, it talks about 3 things that this council could do if it was serious about supporting tourism in the region. The first being the visitor information centre at Serena to get people before they get onto the ring road. The second part was a visitor information centre in the CBD. The third was something in the north after the ring road was completed, which I suppose we'll have to talk about at some point after there. Specifically, it was talking about, in discussions there's been talk about, what are the other options that we have. The report clearly states the reasons behind having it at the Blue Water Quay. The Visitor Information Service Centre at Serena only caters for 1/4 of all the types of tourists that come through our region, that being the grey nomads and other people travelling through. The city centre one's specifically designed for all of our business visitors, friends and families that are moving around the city centre or staying in the city centre. That's the other 75% of those people visiting the region. So specifically why the Blue Water Quay, it's around the existing number of visitors there, its proximity to the city centre, proximity to the places where people stay, and the fact that as people, I reported earlier that 45% of all people visiting Canelands are from out of region. That's actually 52% we found out yesterday. So the position there is the people who specialise in telling us where these things should go have told us that it should go there. I know people have been talking about the dome. That original consideration was under a previous director when there was the thought around the dome being a hub of GW3, tourism, all that, where the administration would go. This particular facility will have a kiosk, a modern day kiosk, and the administration staff in the same spot. Now, if we want to go and put it in the PDA later, that's a determination for later. It could be 5 years away. But if we move it later, then council will have a facility they can use. We have to move them out of their current facility. If we don't approve the money for this and we don't go forward with the project, I can tell you that they'll be spending $100,000 just in one lot maintaining their current building, and then a continual $30,000 a year in maintenance. So we need to get them out of there into a more cost-effective environment. And even though we're asking the ratepayers for another $177,000, I believe by spending the money now, rather than going into another review and getting quotes later, will save the residents and ratepayers a significant amount of money. And so I support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor England. Speaker against? Councillor Bonaventura speaking against.
Thank you, Look, and I thank Councillor England for that report that he arranged to be circulated. That report goes back to 2017, and a lot has happened in those 3 years. And I don't know whether it's still current enough for me to accept that we should put in this additional expenditure. A lot could have changed in that time, and I believe we could look at other options. So this is a 60% blowout in the cost of this structure. And that, to me, is too much to bear without looking at other options. So I personally will be voting no on this, and I ask councillors to support me on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Speaker for. Are there any other speakers? Councillor, you're speaking for. Councillor May, yes.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And we're all very conscious of the amount of money that's involved in bringing this project to fruition. I don't think that anybody could have foreseen the increase, and as Councillor Engler has said, the market dictates the prices. We do a tendering process, and we estimate our costs to the best of the officers' ability that have been assigned to that project. We have seen on many occasions, through many different projects that this council's delivered, increases in costs, water, sewage, there's been a number of them, roads and bridges that have all increased. I think, to me, this particular project is around completing the strategy. We started on a path of expanding the visitor information service, and if I want to go one step back, we started on a path of diversifying our economy, and tourism was going to be a key pillar in that. So the strategy was around making sure that if we're going to promote ourselves as a destination, we've got the services to be able to deliver that. And I think by completing this project and being part of that overall plan that we had to start with, will see us in good stead to be a player in tourism.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Speaker against? Councillor G speaking against.
Mr Mayor, councillors, within the waterfront master plan, there's another 3 identified in the possible locations for tourism and marketing in the city centre. Before, like I said, 60% blowout. If we're targeting business sector, I think we should be targeting where they're having dinner at night, which is the actual city centre, which is highlighted in a very current plan that's about to be adopted, or maybe not adopted. What I'm saying is, I feel we're rushing into it. From the talks lately about the memorial pool, we all have to acknowledge that pools do have an end of life before they have to be reinvested in. Is the lagoon going to be the location? There's all these questions that aren't answered about the future direction of the city centre and the PDA and the northern beaches. Will 4 information centres in the city centre be too much before we even get a chance to look at the north? I think it's got to be looked at holistically. I think rushing in with what was gone from a $120,000 information centre to a whatever it is now is a big jump, and I hope we actually step back, have a look, assess a few more sites. Maybe we can knock over one of the city centre ones instead of committing in 2 places.
Okay, speaker for. Any other speakers? Okay. Councillor England, do you wish to exercise a right of reply?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So it has been looked at holistically, Your Worship, in a report that we funded. I've got one councillor saying the report's too old, another one saying we're rushing into things. So The point is, we've heard both of them say 60% blowout. I can guarantee you, and okay, I probably shouldn't say that because I'm not the expert. I could guarantee that one of those directors over there would guarantee you that, that if you don't put this money through and then you wait and we go through a reporting period, the blowout will be 100% or 120%. Because if the market's telling this now, then what's the market going to be? This is adding on to an existing facility. Let's build something new somewhere else. I won't ask the CEO, but I bet you tell you it's $1 million just to build it now. If that's your argument, that this is the blowout, this is saving money today from the ratepayers of tomorrow. This is $177,000 that will save us the $100,000 that they're going to spend on maintenance next year out of the money that we give them, plus the $30,000, so it pays itself off in 3 years. So there's a building that we have ready to go when the PDA is ready in 5 years. And it says, yeah, we can move there. But right now we can't because it doesn't exist. So this is where we need to put it. This is saving ratepayers money.
Thank you very much. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. 6.5, the extension of a lease agreement for VMX with Sunday. So this is, did I miss one, did I? 11.6.4. Oh, well, why don't we do 11.6.4? Righto, 11.6.4 is the Serena Men's Shed. This is a good outcome, I think. This is pretty straightforward. Any questions? Moved by Councillor May, seconded by Councillor England. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The CEO and myself have had a number of consultations with the Serena Men's Shed group, and the demand is there. The shed is going ahead in leaps and bounds. The number of guys that participate in the shed activities is driving this project. So the first part of the project is obviously securing the land for them, and that's what we're asking today.
Okay, speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor England.
Thank you, Worship. I wish I'd known it was this easy 10 years ago when the SES was trying to acquire that land. So I congratulate the men's shed on the building at the front is the original Serena SES shed that was condemned by QFIS as a rat haven and asbestos-ridden facility. Council fixed that up and worked with the men's shed to grow into this great community facility we have now. I think it's great that they finally worked out a way to get the land, and the expansion would be great for their community.
Everything seems to come back to the SES.
It's everywhere, man. It's everywhere. Well, it is.
Right. Are there other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Now let's do 11.6.5, which is the VMX with Sunday extension of a lease agreement. This has been going on for a while, as you know, councillors. I think reading this, this proposes to give them another chance. Are there questions? No questions. Somebody would like to move? Councillor Payton moves. Councillor Walker seconds. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think the extension for another 6 months will give last name, the organiser, Ron Single, has had a bit of bad health and that lately, so but hopefully they'll get the go again and get something happening out there. We're not, I don't think council's got any plans set for it at this stage, so yeah.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Payton. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put them out. Oh, Councillor Walker, yes.
Yeah,
speaking for.
I'm happy to speak to this one. They are a very small group, and they only have probably a couple of people that are really active pursuing this, and I think it is a worthwhile thing if they can get it off the ground. It's going to be a slow process, there's no doubt about that, and we've seen that in the last 12 months. They've only had a couple of, I think they've had a map of accessible vegetation done, they've had an acoustics report done. They've got a long way to go, but I think given the value of it, if it was to go ahead, and in light of them being a very small group with limited funds, I'm happy to extend this. And I think if they do a little bit in the next 6 months, I would, again, if council hasn't got something pressing to put there, that we do extend it, because I don't think they can do what they've got to do in 6 months, regardless of who they are. So I guess we're giving them the message that, you know, they need to get a move on, and they need to get some runs on the board, and then I would hope that the next council, if they do get a few more runs on the board, that they will look at extending again.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Are there other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. 11.6.6 and the couple after this, we've got 3 road closures. Councillors, Are there questions on 6.6, which is a permanent road closure at Yakapari Road? No questions? Somebody like to move the adoption? Councillor Payton moves, Councillor Cam seconds. Councillor Payton?
No, straightforward.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. 6.7 is the permanent road closure in the road reserve adjoining lot 7 on Gurnett Road in Serena. Questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves. Councillor May seconds. Councillor Mann, put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. 6.8 is the permanent road closure for a road reserve adjoining lot 4 on the Mount Martin Loop Road at Mount Martin. Questions? You have a question, Councillor?
Yeah, I have got one question around this. It looks, just looking at the photograph of it, I'm wondering, does the Mount Martin Loop Road lay outside of the road reserve that has been requested to be closed? Or is this like private access?
Yeah.
That's a bit confusing there, sorry.
That's a good question. So,
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Payton. I'll read this out. The road reserve is 60 metres wide in this particular area, which is quite unusual. And the area in question is currently being cropped by the landowner, I won't use his name, who owns lot 4 and wishes to close a section of the road adjacent to his lot along Mount Martin Loop Road to formalise the use that he's been doing. Survey of the location of the table drain adjacent to the road has been undertaken. A new boundary has been adopted based on a new boundary position of approximately 1 metre offset into the lot at the top of the bank. This will leave all of the table drain within the road reserve and still maintain a distance of 12.5 metres from the centre line of the bitumen road. So there'll still be more than adequate road reserve for any future. So it's sort of been confusing with what's been using, but that'll all pretty well, we think, will be fine for a long time.
It's just narrowing.
Yeah. So that's a wide one at the moment.
Thank you.
good, okay. No further questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Cam moves. Councillor Payton seconds. Councillor Cam?
It's very straightforward.
Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. 6.9 is the adoption of council policies, the use of the Blue Water Lagoon, the youth policy and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander policy. This has been circulated, there's been no feedback. Are there any questions? Somebody like to move the adoption of council policy? Councillor Mann moves, Councillor Walker seconds, Councillor Mann. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Receipt of petitions, petition for the closure of St Annie's Road and particularly about the Weshes swimming hole. This is just to receive this petition. So, CEO, do you want to?
All I'll say is my plan is to bring it back to the 12th of February, even though there's no date in there. I've asked the staff, and I think from what I've read so far, that's the plan. We'd like to bring this one back. So we'll be bringing it back in 2.5 weeks.
That'll be good. Okay. And so the recommendation is, and the motion will be, that the petition be received and referred to the CEO for a report to bring back. It doesn't mention the next meeting in there, but I'm happy to include it, but that's the intent, to bring it back to the next meeting. Moved by Councillor England, seconded by Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor England?
No.
Okay. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. There's no tenders to consider today. There's no consideration of notified motions. We have a couple of people who've patiently waited for public participation, and Doug Peterson is with us today. Doug, welcome. As I'm sure you know, you have 3 minutes. It's not an interactive session, but it's good to have you here at council, and we are looking forward to what you say.
Thank you for your indulgence. Firstly, I'd like to say I think the councils do a good job. I'll never knock you, but perfection doesn't rate us all. The museum's been mentioned here today. I've got 1.5 suitcases to give the museum when it reopens. I've given them stuff before, but the difficulty is that building. Any documented stuff I've had to put in the John Oxley Library because I don't trust in that building. And if you did build a new building, the RSL could have a room and solve that problem. When you're deliberating, Northern Beaches, there's 2 northern beaches, there's southern and northern. So there's 10 kilometres from Royal Sands to Black's Beach. So, you know, things that happen in one end, unless it's a rural review, that doesn't help everybody. Notice the month the Bucasia enclosure was removed, it was that you were going to repair the McEwen's Beach one.
Main Street gets a bit confused because the previous director and mayor, there was an arrangement with the residents of the occasion. New director, new mayor, yes, minister, the street lights at Bucasia, totally dangerous. There's better options for turtles, in Barrow Island and other places. I can get you the specifications. Because what goes into Bucasia, you're going to have to put it in East Mackay. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Lastly, I'd like to mention, in the names of the 11 councillors, they demoted the mayor. I received a threat from a council worker, and I don't expect for it to affect you at all, but I've taken it on board. And the only other time I've ever seen action like that is the black shirt Nazis in the war movies. It was totally arrogant, and it's that department. We've had 11 years of arrogance and untruths, and it can't go on too much longer. You cannot communicate with them. You could have saved $11 million at the occasion by that brochure and talking to 2 residents there, because the Turtle Lady of Blackspeed said they only had a problem with lights from 2 houses. But you spend $1 million trying to keep everybody's lights off the beach. Nearly out of time. If there's anything else, I'll come back next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Peterson. I'll get the CEO to get in touch with you over that complaint about staff. It's certainly not something that we condone or would expect from any staff member. And the CEO will take it up. And Mr. Smith, thank you very much. It's good to see you again. And once again,
thank you.
3 minutes.
Look, I would love to be able to persuade as many of you as possible to read this book. And first of all, I don't think you would need to read it right through. And the stacks of, which way do you say the word, graph or graph? Anyway, you know what I mean. And I'm no scientist, and you don't have to be. This book mirrors and mazes in the big print, and underneath it says, a guide through the climate change debate. Well, I've lent this book, this is my own, by the way. I'll borrow your pen and put my name, because I want to offer it to lend it to you for as long as you like. I must put my name, and phone number. But look, it's
Mr. Smith, we can buy it through our library.
Maybe 10 weeks ago, when I read this book and realised what a greatly important book it is. This might seem an exaggeration, but I doubt if there could be in the whole world at the moment a book more important than this one. That's how I rate it, because it pours waterfalls of cold water on all this CO2 alarm. I know that probably most of you and the public at large, and Sir David Attenborough and this trumped up little Swedish schoolgirl and far too many politicians at all levels of government in Australia and around the world all believe this carbon dioxide scare. But this book, and as I say, if you like me, you wouldn't have to get anywhere near the end of it to be thoroughly convinced that carbon dioxide has nothing, not a damn thing to do with global warming. And it's, and all I can say, just quickly, all these so-called, 90-something% of the world's climate scientists who say that CO2 is the demon. Well, I can only think that they are either not true scientists to place, or else that they have been coerced, bribed, pressured, or something. And also, I'd say there's no doubt that they have, the whole lot of them have a creed, probably probably not in print because it could get published at the end of the, but maybe an unwritten law that thou shalt not think outside the square, thou shalt not look back into time, even into, this book sets it out.
So thanks, Mr. Smith. You've gone over your 3 minutes, and look, we will.
I'll just look. Would you like to?
We will gratefully accept it. However, we can buy that through our library, and we'll make it. We'll give you the assurance that we'll do that and make it available to councillors.
It is completely convincing.
Thank you.
So I'll get the acceptance off and the bookable purchase.
Thank you. And there's no further members of the public participation. Late business councillors. Any late business, Councillor May?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through the week I had I attended the LGAQ, the Local Government Association Asset Management Advisory Group, where I gave a presentation on what Mackay Regional Council's been doing in asset management and our capital delivery. So we've been part of that group, and it's a group that I actually chair, that we have been, all of the different councils that are involved have given a presentation, and this was the last meeting of this particular term of council. So it was our turn, and I must say the feedback from the constituents around the table were very impressed with what Mackay Regional Council is doing as far as their asset management and their capital delivery are concerned. When I hear some of the horror stories that come from other councils, we are going ahead in leaps and bounds. Prioritising our work and our processes has really set the groundwork for some really good capital delivery and asset management going forward. So the directors, the staff, the CEO, I just want to say, thank you for helping me with that presentation. And I think we've done a great job in the 4 years that this council's been in office, and look forward to that continuing with the new council, whoever that may be. But the officers are really the ones that are driving that, and they've done a great job.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Further late business? Councillor G.
Mr Mayor, on behalf of Ethan Laval and Flynn Bushell, the two boys that set up the petition for Camilleri Street, they'd like to say a big thank you to all the councillors, the staff involved, and just it's been a pleasure to work with us apparently. And they were surrounded by kids when they told me this, and the smiles at that park at the moment are great, and they just wanted to pass on a big thanks.
Thanks, Councillor G. Councillor England.
Thank you, Worship. I've been involved with the ladies of ESA Alpha Row, the powerhouse of 20 or so ladies that raise more money than anyone else in the region, any particular one year. CEO, I need you here. Okay, probably best you're not here when I'm saying this. So I've been rapping with them for the last 10 years over the Christmas period, and the CEO's come along and to look good for the last couple of years. And this year I was promoted from sticky tape boy to actual rapper, and I got my own bench for a period of hours before it was taken off me again. But it was rather disturbingly, I found out that they've been telling the CEO that he was the better rapper of the two, and then telling me. And when I confronted them, they said, oh, they were just making him feel good about himself. But my point is, the ladies from ESA Alpha Row, the volunteers from CQ Rescue, and other many organisations, including a couple of councillors, Councillor May and Mann. Cam, did you turn up?
I did the cutters beat me, but yeah.
Okay, cool, that's right, yeah. But anyway, with all the volunteers there, the ladies of ESA Alpha raised $38,000, and that was presented to CQ Rescue yesterday at a morning tea. And so just acknowledge their work and the councillors that were involved in that.
Thanks very much, Councillor England. Further late business? Any further business? Councillor G, again.
Sorry, I'm a member of North Barrier Branch Council for SLSC.
Yeah.
Serpent. I just got a second warning. 2 days in a row, box jellyfish have been caught at IMEO, so please, stinger suits are the seatbelts of the surf. Be cautious when you enter the water. It's not looking good for our carnival that's booked for this weekend.
Thanks, Councillor G. Further late business, councillors? Okay, we have some confidential reports to consider. There's quite a number of them, as you can see. And I think we should probably move into a closed session. So would somebody like to move that the meeting be closed to the public? Councillor Cam moves, Councillor Mann seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried.